chapter 12 this evening. We are winding down our study in the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon's Journal. I only have tonight and I believe one more week as we look at this last chapter in Solomon's Journal. Whether we like it or not, we are all getting older. I just thought I'd ask if there's anyone here who's not any older than they were yesterday. Yeah. All of us are aging. It really isn't. Some people enjoy joking about aging, but deep down inside, growing older is something that many people dread. And they actually fear getting older. And folks, we can't help getting older, but we don't have to get old, if you know what I mean. I like how the psalmist Moses put it in Psalm chapter 90, verse 9. At the end of that verse, he says, "We spend our years as a tale that is told." We spend our years as a tale that is told. Every one of us gets older. In fact, there are three things that happen when a person gets older. The first is your memory goes, and I don't remember what the other two were. But I did come across a list recently to help us to know when we're getting older. So I've compiled the top 10 indicators that you know you're getting older. You know you're getting old if you try to straighten the wrinkles in your socks and you realize you aren't wearing any. You know you're getting old at the breakfast table, you hear snap, crackle, and pop, and you're not eating cereal. You know you're getting old when a recliner and a heating pad is your idea of a hot date. You know you're getting old when you light the candles on your birthday cake and a group of campers form a circle and start singing Kumbaya. You know you're getting old when you sink your teeth into a good steak and they stay there. You know you're getting old when you're sitting on a park bench and a Boy Scout comes up and helps you cross your legs. You know you're getting old when you change the font size on your phone to billboard. You know you're getting old when you cough like crazy. No. Excuse me, I'm sorry. I do have one of these Miracle Honey lozenges that one of our church members so graciously gave me. So it feels like I have a Volkswagen in my mouth, but I'm still trying to hide it. What's that? I can hardly wait, yeah. It'd be great. You know you're getting old when your pickup line to your wife is, "Hey, babe, you better call Life Alert because I've fallen for you and I can't get up." You know you're getting old when your pacemaker makes the garage door go up when you see a pretty girl. And you know you're getting old when the little gray-haired lady you help across the street is now your wife. So now I read that. I just reading these off of this. I wouldn't have said that one. But folks, aging happens to every one of us. Each new dawn and each golden sunset are constant reminders to each one of us we're getting older. And not only we're getting older, but we're living longer. Far longer than past generations. And as a result, the aged are now asking questions that have never been asked by previous generations. Listen how Chuck Swindoll discusses this issue. He says this: his grandmothers are no longer asking, "Shall I sit back and enjoy my grandchildren?" On the contrary, today's grandmother is asking, "Shall I pursue that graduate degree?" Grandfathers are also different from what they used to be. Instead of asking, now that I'm in my 70s, shall I retire to Leisure Village? Today they're wondering, now that I'm in my 70s, why not move into the White House? You see, folks, we're not only growing older, but we're living longer. Not many years ago, the elderly formed a small percentage of the people living in the United States. For example, back in the year 1900, only 4% of America was over 65%. Today, the population of America over 65% is over 15%. So we are living longer. And with that being said, we've come to the final moments of Solomon's journey. And Solomon has come to realize the importance of listening to and walking with his Creator. The years that he wasted earlier in his life can never be retrieved because they are already spent. And he doesn't hesitate to remind us, before all of that aging catches up with us, to remember the Creator in the days of our youth. That's where we start off with Ecclesiastes chapter 1, verse 12. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth, while the evil days come not, nor the years draw nigh, when thou shalt say, I have no pleasure in them. Now again, I can see Solomon sitting down with great regret and great remorse in his heart, fully knowing that the decisions that he had made prior in his life caused many evil days that he's talking about here in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. He has to be thinking, why did I waste so many years pursuing what I thought would bring me pleasure, only to find out that there were some very severe consequences for my choices and my decisions. And those decisions and those choices cost me serious heartache. And now he's trying to pass along that long-awaited wisdom that he originally asked God for back in 1 Kings chapter 3. And Solomon is reminding us here this evening that when we are young, it's so easy to think that we're just going to live forever. You know, when you got in your 20s and 30s, you just, I mean, it's like I'm just, there's no stopping us. And that's what Solomon wants us to think through, that we're not going to live forever. And we will age. Every one of us are getting older. And our bodies play tricks on us. They try to convince us that we're always going to be young. You know it. You try to do something that you used to do 20 or 30 years ago, thinking that, hey, this is a piece of cake. I can do this. Well, I used to play in softball tournaments a lot. But after enough years, I've retired. Until my friend who's a pastor up in Allentown, he has a tournament. So his son and my son are close friends. So he calls me up and says, hey, Rick, can you come out of retirement just for one time, we'll play in one tournament, and we'll play with our sons? And that was absolutely, I would love to play baseball or softball with my son and his son. This would be great. Well, what I didn't realize, the knucklehead pastor, friend of mine, puts me in left center field, which means I'm running all night, all day long, all over the place. I mean, I'm saying, put me a catcher, whatever, put me on the bench. I don't care. But he has me in left. I hurt both of my hamstrings, my legs. I could hardly walk. And it's like, this is stupid. I'm not 30 any longer. So I gave up softball. But we always think that we can just keep doing this. We just, no problem. No. Here at Ecclesiastes chapter 12, Solomon is going to address this issue of aging. Briefly dealing with mental aging, which I think is what he's talking about here in chapter 12, verses 1 and 2, and then dealing with the process of deterioration that occurs in our bodies. It's very obvious to me what he's speaking about here in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. And again, look with me in Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 2. He says, while the sun or the light or the moon or the stars be not darkened, nor the clouds return after the rain. Now again, taking this entire passage in its context, it seems like Solomon is saying that there will be a time when the sun and the light and the moon and the stars are going to be darkened. There is coming a time when that will happen. And this seems to be a picture of older age when a person's mental capacity isn't what it used to be. In fact, when he says, nor the clouds return after the rain, that's a pretty clear picture. You see, the cloudy weather represents the aging mind as it begins to get a little duller and foggier over time. And I'm not saying we have all experienced that, but let me just suggest that perhaps you may have. Have you ever walked into a room and got in there and thought to yourself, now why did I come in here? Right? You never happened, Gene. Trust me, I've had enough for both of us. But seriously, our minds just aren't as crisp and clear as they used to be 30 years ago. That happens. And that's what it's talking about, how the clouds return, nor the clouds return after the rain. And folks, the brain controls many aspects of our thinking and talking about, such as remembering and planning, organizing, making decisions. All of these things affect our days. But as a person ages, he or she may struggle with certain things. Let me just give you a couple. They may have an increased difficulty in recalling names or finding the right words. I did that on purpose for preacher license here. Finding the right words to say. Or a name. It's like, yeah, you look, yeah. Dad, no. But no, seriously. I've always had a problem with names, so it's not aging, it's just stupidity. I just don't do well with names. But they may have more problems with multitasking. Used to be able to keep 4 or 5 balls up in the air at one time. Now I can't hold up the ball, sometimes. It happens. They may not be able to focus as well as they used to. They become confused about time, people, and places. And folks, if the Lord tarries, more than likely, we will all experience a day when the clouds will form in our head. And that's, I believe, what he's talking about here. Solomon says it's important that we remember our Creator when we are young, because as we age, we may experience some of those cloudy days. It just may not be as clear as normal, when our thinking just isn't as clear as it used to be. And now Solomon addresses the physical ailments and limitations, which I believe are very clear for us to look at here in Ecclesiastes chapter 12. Look at verse 3. In the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble, and the strong men shall bow themselves, and the grinders cease because they are few, and those that look out of the windows be darkened, and the doors shall be shut in the streets, when the sound of their grinding is low, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird, and all the daughters of music shall be brought low. Also, when they shall be afraid of that which is high, and fear shall be in the way, and the almond tree shall flourish, and the grasshopper shall be a burden, and desire shall fail, because man goeth to his long home, and the mourners go about the streets. Or ever the silver cord be loosed, or the golden bowl be broken, or the pitcher be broken at the fountain, or the wheel broken at the cistern. Now, Solomon uses a house as the basis of his allegory here for teaching here. Look at the things that he mentions here about our physical age. And he starts off, he said, the keepers of the house. The keepers of the house. Now, here Solomon is referring to our arms and our hands. That is my understanding from most of the commentaries I've read. He's talking about our arms and our hands. And notice what he says. He says, they tremble in the day when the keepers of the house shall tremble. Now, studies show that occasionally trembling and shaky hands can occur at any age. But more likely, it occurs to someone who is aging. And when you see an older person that has the shakes, we immediately think of one thing: Parkinson's. But that's not always the case. It happens with aging. Now, our old pastor, the pastor, Dr. Robert Jordan, who I got saved under, developed Parkinson's later in life, and he ultimately died of Parkinson's. I saw what that did to him. And we've had other people go through Parkinson, but it's not always the case. It's a product of aging, and it can happen to any one of us. There's a lot of other reasons, but just know if you see it in yourself or somebody else, get it checked. Don't just stand there and watch, oh, I'm not shaking too bad today, or I'm shaking more than I was yesterday. Go get it checked. It's okay to go to the doctor and get it checked. The keepers of the house, he says. And then he says, the strong men shall bow themselves, or bow themselves. I think it's bow themselves. Because our bodies are built on two strong pillars, our legs. And they are referred to here as strong men. But as you read on, we see that these strong men ultimately stoop or bow. And folks, when we were younger, we could run, we could jump, we could get up without even thinking about it. Now, when we get older, we sit there in our recliner and have to think about getting up. It just happens. Our pillars are not as strong as they used to be. And Solomon is making that point. They're not as strong as they used to be. When we get older, it becomes harder to keep our muscles healthy, so we do have to continue to try to stay in shape, whether it's walking or doing some type of exercise or something like that. Because when our muscles get smaller, they decrease in strength, and it makes it even more difficult to move around. I've shared this before. Shar and I helped take care of a 97-year-old now, man back up in our area, Lansdale. And I tell you, he is not going to stop. He's not going to stop. He makes sure that he gets up every morning. He gets himself dressed every morning. And he has his walker. He wants to go out. He's such a social individual that he just doesn't want to stop. Because if he stops, he stops. And so it's an encouragement to us. And in reading this again, it's like, yeah, I understand how the strong men shall bow themselves. And then he goes on to say, the grinders cease because they are few. Now, again, I don't think we need a thorough study in the Hebrew to understand that Solomon is talking about our teeth here. I really don't think we have to get some seminary professors in here to help us understand that. Because often when a person ages, they get what is commonly called as summer teeth. Some are here and some are there, you know. But they change. Things change. And or you could become like my father, and you can put your teeth in a jar at the end of the day. You know, he put it on the nightstand. That's where he held his teeth in for the evening. You hear the story about the pastor who went to the dentist for a set of false teeth? First Sunday he gets his new teeth. He preaches, and he preaches for only 8 minutes. The second Sunday he preaches for only 10 minutes. The following Sunday, he preaches for 2 hours and 45 minutes. In fact, it was so long the congregation had to forcibly remove him from the pulpit. And they asked him, what happened? He explained, he said, well, the first Sunday, my gums hurt so bad I could only talk for 8 minutes. The second Sunday, my gums hurt so bad I could only preach for 10 minutes. He said, but the third Sunday, I put my wife's teeth in by mistake and I couldn't shut up. Well, let's close in prayer with that one. Yeah. You see, folks, Solomon says, when we get older, the grinders don't work like they used to. Moving right along. And those that look out of the windows be darkened. It, again, doesn't take a biblical scholar to figure this one out either. What looks out the window? Our eyes. Our eyes. What grows dim with age? Our eyes. Again, as we get older, our eyesight gets worse, and after experiencing cataracts, and I had that taken care of about 2 years ago, each eye, I understand what that feels like, where you don't even realize the cloudiness that you're looking through because you got used to it. But I had the kind of cataracts that grow from the outside in, and my son-in-law is an optometrist, so we've been watching it for a couple years. And then finally, I could not see the golf ball as I'm playing golf. I'd hit it and say, well, that felt like it went straight. But I was playing with my son and son-in-law, and I said, well, yeah, Dad, I was down there. So I had to had somebody. I felt like Ray Charles out there. I couldn't see it. So anyhow, I had the cataract surgery. I had the first one, my right eye done first. And that was incredible. You see perfectly clear now out of this eye, and the colors are vibrant. And this eye looks like you're looking through cellophane. And so it was really awkward trying to teach. They took one glass out of this, so I could still read, because they put the new lens so I could only see distance. So I'm trying to preach looking like this and looking out here. It was really awkward. But boy, when they did that second eye, and again, I don't need glasses now to see distance. I can't read, so these are reading glasses here. So I realize what happens when you age, and I went through that cataract surgery. My vision was darkened. And we felt it coming on, but boy, when it finally came across the center of my eye, and Kathy, I'm sure you're fully aware of this, man. It's like, whoa, it's like, this is terrible. And driving at night was, oh man, it just felt like everybody had spotlights on. It was not good. Just think about the last time you went to the eye doctor's office. How many people there were over the age of 60? A lot. But it happens. It happens to all of us. Their windows are getting darkened. Then he goes on, he says, the doors shall be shut in the streets, and he shall rise up at the voice of the bird. Again, this is a reference to our hearing. We don't hear like we once did. One of the most common phrases an older person uses is, what did you say? I'm not going to tell personal stories there. But Solomon adds that the slightest noise wakes us up now. Again, when you were younger, you could sleep through thunderstorms, you could sleep through anything. But nowadays, man, the little noise, you look up like that. When we retired a year ago, May, Char and I took a couple weeks off. We went on vacation, and then we went up to the mountains for a week. And a nice house up there. In fact, where we're going to go for the men's retreat. And right outside our window was a little pond. He has one of those little ponds that you have the fountain, and it's really nice to sit there outside and have a cup of coffee, and you see the fountain, you see the fish and everything. It's like that. Well, our window was right next to that pond. And what he also had at that pond was a frog who thought it was his spiritual gift to serenade us all night long. And by the time the middle of the night came, it sounded like a freight train was out there. It was just ridiculous how loud this frog was. It's like, just give me a gun. Let me go take care of this. He shall rise up at the voice of the bird or frog. The daughters of music shall be brought low. I believe Solomon's referring to how an older person's voice weakens. Because we just can't speak as loud as we once did. Even some of the best professional performers or preachers can no longer project their voices like they used to. He goes on to say, and when they shall be afraid of that which is high. Anybody else here struggle with the fear of heights? Yeah. I never did. As I was younger, I've flown all the time when I was younger by myself as a teenager down to South Carolina with my uncle's house, and used to fly. I've flown in small planes. Like I said, a small Cessna. We flew down to Myrtle Beach for a weekend. I love flying until one day I went up in an outside elevator. They said, well, we're going to go to dinner, and it's up on top of that floor. So, oh, great, fine. And I got in the elevator, and it was one of those outside ones. I just stood back, and just let everybody else come in. I stood there, and I looked down, and I'm looking at glass. And from that moment on, I wouldn't move. It was about 40 stories. I mean, it was high. And ever since then, and Char will tell you this, ever since then, I can't even think about standing like on the top of a building. Or when we went to a missions trip to the Ukraine the second year, we came back through Paris. What do you do when you go to Paris? Eiffel Tower. Sam, come on, Mr. Schneider, let's go to the Eiffel Tower. No, go ahead. I'm going to go get a croissant. Right here. So I went and had a cup of coffee and a croissant, and they went up the Eiffel Tower. I said, I don't care. I could see pictures. I don't care. But just thinking about that, I think we were talking about, Barbara, we were talking about is it the Chicago in Chicago? The Chicago Tower that has that outside thing, like you can go outside and you could stand in like a little glass thing. I watched some friends, they put pictures on Facebook. I mean, it was terrifying to me. It's like, are you crazy? No. When they shall be afraid of that which is high. I'm telling you, it's a leap of faith just for me to climb my extension ladder to unclutter the gutters. I mean, it's not good. One of Char's bucket list was a hot air balloon ride. And we have a friend who has a hot air balloon company, so we bought the ride at an auction. And, oh yeah, go on. She's loving it. Rick, oh yeah, Rick, look down. It's like, nope. I look at the horizon, I see that, oh, there's Jersey over there. Yeah, that's good. Oh, look down. It's like, nope. It was lovely. And I would do it again. I just want to look down. There it is. They shall be afraid of that which is high. And then he goes on and says, the almond tree shall flourish. You ever seen an orchard of almond trees in full bloom? They are covered in white flowers in the early spring. I believe Solomon is painting a very clear picture of an elderly person's gray hair. I really do. That's what I believe he's talking about there. The almond tree shall flourish. Now listen, folks, if gray hair is a sign of wisdom, then I'm a genius. But Proverbs, and this is for those of us who have a gray hair or two, Proverbs chapter 20, verse 29 says, the beauty of the old men is the gray hair. So I tell my kids, in that case, I'm a looker. And that's with an L, not an H. And I'm not talking about my golf game. The beauty of the old men is the gray hair. And it reminded me of a story. I hope you don't mind sharing this with you, but about the gray-haired gentleman who just purchased a new Corvette. As he pulled out of the dealership, he put his foot on the gas pedal and he took off down the highway, and he hit 80 miles an hour. The wind was flowing through what little bit of gray hair he had left. And he looked in the rearview mirror only to see a state trooper behind him with the lights flashing and the siren blaring. The older man floored it, hitting 100 miles an hour, then 110, then 120. And suddenly he thought, what am I doing? I am too old for this. And he pulls over to await the trooper's arrival. Pulling in behind him, the state trooper walked up to the Corvette. He looked at his watch and he said, now listen, sir. He says, my shift ends in 30 minutes. He said, today's Friday. If you can give me a reason for speeding that I've never heard before, I'll let you go. The old gentleman paused for a moment. He said, sir, he said, 6 years ago, my wife ran off with a state trooper, and I thought you were bringing her back. State trooper said, listen, have a good day, sir, and let him go. Folks, Solomon here at the end of his journal reminds us that getting older, this getting older thing isn't for sissies. But if his journal stopped right here, it would leave us with a very grim picture. If all we had to look forward to was the gray hairs, fewer teeth, and weak arms and legs, then I would call that a bleak future. Again, that's why I tried to add some humor today, because we have so much to look forward to. We really do. Even though we're getting older, we have so much to look forward to. And there's more, in fact, much more. If we go back to Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 1, Solomon says, let me give you something to smile about. Here's what I want you to remember. I want you to remember thy Creator in the days of your youth. Remember Him. Remember Him. Because at the end of your life, when you know the Creator and we are ushered into His presence, in the most beautiful place we have ever seen in our life. In fact, we cannot even imagine the beauty. I love 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9. But as it is written, eye hath not seen, nor ear heard, neither have entered into the heart of man the things which God hath prepared for them that love Him. Just think about that. Eye hasn't seen, ear hasn't, nothing. Nobody can even imagine what God has prepared for us. Look at verse 7, chapter 12, verse 7. Then shall the dust return to the earth as it was, and the spirit shall return unto God who gave it. Our spirits will return to God who gave it to us. And when this happens, we will see a smile like we have never seen before. When the Lord looks at you and says, welcome home. Welcome home. You did good. A while back, I had preached through a message, and this song came to my mind, and I just thought I'd share the words with you again. What a day that will be when my Jesus I shall see. When I look upon his face, the one who saved me by his grace. When he takes me by the hand and leads me to the promised land. What a day, glorious day that will be. Remember now thy Creator in the days of thy youth. Let's pray together. Father, again, Lord, I thank you that we can look at Scripture and we can still have fun and talk through some of these things, but it's in your word. And I believe to the best of our ability, we try to understand what Solomon is talking about, and the wisest man who ever lived certainly knows. So, Lord, I pray that you help us, not necessarily with the physical parts, but, Lord, would you help us to remember you in the days of our youth, because we have so much to look forward to when that day when we meet you face to face. Looking forward to it, Lord. Now, thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, as your prayer bulletin there, we'll update you on